Let's start the chapter. Okay, in this chapter, we'll be talking about foundation of control, the management function. We started with the planning, then organizing, then leading, and now we are in the control. So we are on to controlling. So what's a control? Control is a process of monitoring activity to ensure that they are being accomplished as planned and correcting any significant deviations using performance standards like specific goals. There's a certain goals and specific goals, or measures of organizational performance, such as organizational productivity, organizational effectiveness, and industry and company ranking. Now, why is control important? Control or monitoring is the final link in the four management functions that we spoke about it. It is the key way for managers to know whether organizational goals are being met and what future action to take. Control helps leaders and managers help. Control helps the leaders and managers plan for future, helps employers help empower employees, feedback and performance. Gets a feedback and on their performance. But how we connect planning to the control is first we start planning, which is we will have a goal, we'll have kind of a strategies and a plan to meet these strategies and goals. And then we have organizing. We start according to that, structure the activities and the company and have a good human resource management accordingly. And then we lead that through motivation, leadership, through communication, individual and a group behavior. And while the performance happening, we start controlling or before or after, and it's through standards, through measurement, through comparisons and action. So that's the way the planning and control are linked with each other. And this will lead to achieving organization standards and organization goals. Now, the control process is about measuring performance. How we measure, are we measuring leading versus trailing measurements? I'll explain that. What we measures, easy to understand, supposed to be, and compare the performance against the standards. So we compare our performance against the standards, and this we use what you call benchmarking or benchmarking of best practice. And we take managerial actions according to these performance measurements. And in the managerial action, we might do nothing or correct actual performance immediately versus the basic corrections, and or revise the standard, or we're doing a combination of them. So the step one is we measuring actual performance. through the benchmarking. And then we do a comparing actual performance against the standard one, that's what we do. And then when we do that, if we will make a decision to take a managerial action regard of that, and we will keep measuring, comparing actual and taking managerial action. So what's a benchmarking best practice? First of all, there is a steps to implement an internal benchmark best practice. There is an external benchmark and there is an internal benchmark. In the internal benchmark, first, we'll explain that, but first we connect best practice to strategies and goals. Identify best practice throughout the organization. Develop best practice, reward and recognize the structures, and then communicate best practice throughout the organizations and create the best practice knowledge sharing systems and nurture best practice on ongoing basis. And we will explain these. But when to introduce control? When can we start introducing the control and utilizing it? There's something called feed-forward control, which is a control implemented before the activity begins. And then where you have the concurrent control, which is controls implemented during the time the activity is going on. And feedback control, which is control implemented after the activity is completed. You can see this in the sports, especially in football and other games also. But there is types of control in general. First, if we anticipate any problem, we use the forward or feed-forward controls. And then we start looking at and monitoring the process, which is the input. And once the input, we looked at the input, we can manage the anticipated problem again and see the inputs. Then it goes to the process, but we should be ready for during the process, which is correct problem as they happen, which is that called a concurrent control during the process. And then we might wait for the output, and that's where we use correct problems after they occur, which is feedback control system. Now, there is what you call the method of control. There is a market control, which uses the market mechanisms as a standard of control. What the market is telling us to behave. This is what would you do. Doctor, legal, they do that a lot. Even financials. And then you have what you call a bureaucratic controls, which relies on the administrative rules within the organization, regulation, policies, and procedures. And then you have the clan control or the culture, which is employee behaviors are regulated by shared values, norm, tradition, ritual, and beliefs. And a good example, my invitation or my business meeting in one of the colleges in Dubai. So overall, the stewardship and the performance, the financial performance. If you have a vision and a strategy, you might want to do two things. One is to be efficient in the internal business processes and satisfaction, which is when you meet the customer and stakeholders' needs. These are two goals that you are always seeking, and they are supporting each other to do that. First of all, if you perform efficient and satisfied, that will contribute to the financial performance better for you, and also will generate more knowledge and innovations within the organization. And all these four feeding each other will meet the strategic objectives that you have, maybe the strategy map, and also you keep doing the performance measure and target and the strategic initiative. So you utilize all these four influenced by those driven, and they are also influence the below. We'll explain that more. That's at the end of it. Thank you very much.